I'm about to show you guys how to flip a house on a novation agreement with little to no money out of your pocket and no paywalls, no tricks. We're actually going to show you how to do it. So what is a novation agreement? A novation agreement is simply somebody selling a property, you coming to that seller and saying, hey, let me fix up your house. And then when I sell it, we'll both get paid. So what would that look like? Well, for us, we just went and checked out what we're calling the flea house. We got a call from one of our investor buddies named Danny. Danny says, hey, there's this house that people are telling me about. Sounds like it's a wreck right up our alley. Guy wants $30K. It's destroyed. How can you make that work? So my mind instantly goes to novation. Novation just means I don't care that your house is destroyed. I know that most people aren't going to want to buy your house, but I'll come in, I'll put the money up to renovate it, and that $30K that you're asking for, you'll get at the closing table when we sell this property for $100K, $130K, whatever it is. So our first impressions of this house is we pull up, all the houses in the neighborhood, maybe 60% of them are dumpster fires. Like they are beat down, they're outdated, they just look rough. But the 40% of the houses that are redone are actually really nice. It's in a small little quiet neighborhood, small houses like 1,200 square foot or less, which is great for us because that means small amount of money to renovate, can keep control of our costs. So we start looking around the outside when we get there because one of the first things you want to look for are all the big ticket items, your roof, your HVAC, your windows, your foundations, any concrete work. So we start looking around. Everything is actually surprisingly in pretty good shape on the outside. Our vinyl siding is in really good shape, not a lot of damage, no big repairs. The fact that it is vinyl siding and it's not metal or something like concrete or brick, that would be a lot harder to repair. Our roof looks in really good shape. One very quick way to check if your roof is going to be really outdated or not, it's not foolproof, but it is just a quick eye test, is if you see dimensional shingles. Dimensional just means that there's layers to the shingles. So one sits here, blah, 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 compared to flat, which is called 3-tab. 3-tab's a lot older. Dimensional, you're probably in good shape. Roof's within maybe 10, 12 years old. So we see a lot of good signs. We don't see foundational issues. Windows all match. So we are like, all right, this is at least something we're checking out. We open the door and all hell breaks loose because it smells like the Humane Society has been locked up and baking in 120 degrees for about 5 years. It was so bad. Our buddy Kyle, one of our guys that comes and helps with inspections and stuff, he goes in and he is the first man on the scene. He comes charging out of that house in about 45 seconds. And he's like, there's fleas all over me. He is picking fleas off of his legs. You can see him jumping on his legs. So we know from the smell and the fact that he's covered in fleas that we are in for it. So on the inside, we actually find a couple real good gems. One, the kitchen is really small. This house is, I think, like 780 square feet downstairs, like 200 square foot upstairs, less than 1,000 square foot total. The kitchen is so small that we know, like the cabinets, all that stuff, we're not looking at a lot of counter space. We don't have to fill up big empty spaces full of walls full of cabinets. Those are all cost savings. Then we look around and we see the bathroom is actually, for some reason, like pretty pristine. It's updated. It's got a new 3-piece fiberglass tub in it. It's got a new vanity. It's got a nice mirror. It's in really good shape. Toilet's not cracked or destroyed. So bathroom is honestly just throw some paint in it, some new flooring, and we're good to go. Big cost savings because all your money is usually tied up in kitchens and baths. So aside from that, everything else is pretty shot. Like everything, all the paint needs redone. All the floors are going to have to be torn out of this house. We're talking down to the floor joists and start over. New subfloor, new flooring, all that stuff. But like I said, all the big ticket items on the outside, big ticket items on the inside being kitchens and baths, not a big deal. So we're talking about on our range of renovations, we either think in terms of light, average, heavy. So that's light, average, and heavy. This is how we break down our different levels of repairs. And then what we look at is 1,500 square foot and below, $1,500 to $2,500, and then $2,500 and above. So we have light, average, heavy for everything under $1,500. We have light, average, heavy for $2,500 to $1,500, and then we have light, average, heavy for $2,500 and above. So we use those two tools to get a pretty good gauge of how much we're going to spend. And we've gotten those costs. We maybe post a screenshot of our cost breakdown, like the range that we sit in. Just over time, doing enough of these flips, you get a pretty good idea of how much money you're going to have into these. So for us, this would have been an average renovation. Average meaning you don't have roofs, walls, like moving walls, removing walls, roof, walls, HVAC, windows, doors. Those are all siding, big ticket items. That puts you in the heavy range. An average for us means we're probably going to do like a kitchen or a bath, or both a kitchen and a bath. And we're going to do all the cosmetic stuff. So flooring, light fixtures, paint, cosmetic stuff, plus some big ticket items. And then if it was just carpet paint, quick turnover, that would be light. So this is going to be an average and under 1,500 square foot. For us, in that square footage of like 900 square feet, we know that that's probably going to cost us anywhere from 30 to 35K. Okay, so when we do our quick walkthrough, that's where our mind's at. All right, we're going to spend about 30 to 35,000 on this property. Now, mind you, before the seller shows up, we do our due diligence. So we get on the auditor site, we get on Zillow, we look at what has property sold for in that area in the last 12 months. When you want to figure out, hey, before I go to this house, what is the amount this house could sell for after it's fixed up? That's your ARV. We looked at the comps in the area. We determined it was going to be somewhere in the ballpark of $100,000 to $110,000. So we're not ever, if it's 100 to 110, we're going to use 100 to be conservative. So before the seller shows up, we know that this house might sell for 100K once it's fixed up. This guy is asking 30K. And we have a reno of about 35K. Those are our numbers in our head when the seller shows up. So at this point, we haven't told him about a novation agreement over the phone or creative financing or any of this stuff. We just said, hey, we're an investor. We are interested. We want to take a look at the property. He shows up. We start chatting. Now, real quick, like sales point, people that are selling their properties have probably already talked to a handful of people that have either tried to especially properties in this condition, have either tried to lowball them, have tried to talk them down on their price, tried to just structure every type of way to just gouge these people. So the last thing that I want to do is start talking price right off the rip and put them on guard. I instantly start those conversations with, let's find some common ground. Oh, you like the Buckeyes. Oh, why are you selling the house? Oh, your daughter used to live here? That's awesome. How many kids do you have? Oh, yeah, I got 2 kids of my own. Oh, so what, you guys are retiring? Where did you work? Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, I had an aunt that worked there. Why are you moving to Florida? I love Florida. Find some type of common ground and let's get out of the sales process, because all the way over there, they're thinking, I know this damn investor. He's just going to want to beat me down. He's trying to make a killing off me. He's going to make all the money on this house. I'm making nothing. I'm getting screwed. So just try to do everything that you can right out the gate to wipe that from their minds. So we start talking. Danny happens to know this guy. He's like, oh, yeah, you sat on the board of some stuff that I was in Lima, whatever. We started asking about his daughter. Now, this is like huge nugget for you guys. When you are dealing with properties in this type of condition, or just hoarder houses, dirty houses, anything like that, the people that own the house are just as embarrassed to show it to you as you are to talk about it. So I always try to make sure that I say, just so you know, obviously the house is a little bit rough, but we have seen way worse. I promise you, this is nothing. Even if it's like the worst house that we've been in, which that one was up there, I still say this is nothing compared to some of the other houses that we've been into. Just to, again, disarm them. I am your friend. I am not here to gouge you. I'm not here to beat you down, shame you because of the condition of your house, whatever. So we start chatting about all that stuff. We spend a few minutes, and then now it's time to sell. So I say, okay, hey, I've been doing this for a while. I'm guessing that there's probably been people offering you somewhere $20,000, $25,000. Bingo. He says, yeah, the best offer I have right now is 28 grand. How did I know that? Because I've done this enough and I know my numbers going into it that I run the calculation, which I'll show you guys at the end of this video, how we determine our offer price. And so I know what fix and flippers are probably trying to pay for this property. So I say, yeah, I know it's not a big difference from what you're looking to get, but I can tell you, I'm not here to beat you down on your price. I'm here to figure out how you can get what you're asking for, and I can make a couple bucks in the process by helping you get this house sold. He says, okay. I said, so I'm happy to talk all cash offer with you, just like they are offering you. But if I were to be able to offer you maybe 30 or 35K, even a little over what you're asking, if you figured out some terms with me, would that be worth it to you, or would you just rather take your cash and run? He says, I'd probably just rather take my cash. I said, really? Even if it was like, say, $35,000, extra $7,000, and you only had to wait like 3 months to get it? He was like, well, no, that I might be interested in that. I'm like, okay, perfect. So do you mind if I tell you how I can make that happen? So once he says yes, now we've disarmed him, because I'm not only not trying to beat him down on his price, I'm trying to give him a little extra money compared to the last guy. I'm not trying to say, and mind you, he's only asking $30,000. I'm not trying to say, okay, well, he's at 28, I'll be at 28.5. Nickel and dime this guy, I'm like making big jumps for him. So I say, okay, let me explain to you what a novation is. And I explained to him that a novation just means that you give me 90 days, and in that 90 days, I am going to come in here, I'm going to renovate this entire property, I'm going to list it on the open market with an agent or without an agent if I just have a buyer. I'm going to get this property sold, and then when I sell it, you are the first person that gets paid. You're getting your $30,000 or $35,000, and I will collect everything that's over that. He says, oh, okay, I don't mind the idea of that if it's only 90 days. Now, mind you, I only set this to 90 days because it's such a small property. I know that we could renovate it in probably 30 days, give myself 30 days to have it on market, 30 days to close, try to move kind of quick. So usually I try to give myself 6 months. You want to make that timeline as long as they'll kind of let you make it so that you're not in a bind. So what I tell this seller is, give me that 90 days, I'll come in, I'll do the renovation. So he says, okay, I'm open to that, but how does all the cost work? So this is a big selling point for novations, is that we take care of all the closing costs. We take care of any mortgage payments that are happening in that 90 days, so the mortgage payments from month to month. We take care of the utilities. If you have somebody come and mowing the grass, we take care of that. Basically, all costs stop. As soon as we come to an agreement with the seller, all costs to the seller stop. We now take over all those costs. So once I explain that part to him, he's like, okay, I'm definitely open to this. So I say, all right, well, I'm pretty confident that we could get this deal done at the $30,000 that you're asking. Let's call it 32 if you do it on a novation agreement. He's like, okay, I'm open to that. Let's get it done. So let's break down what this actually looks like from a number standpoint now that we know that the seller has agreed to it, and how did I come up with those numbers? Obviously, the seller's asking 30K, but what if 30K was too much? Or what if it was like so underpriced that it's an insane deal and I don't even have to negotiate with this guy at all? How do you come up with that price? So our ARV is what determines just about everything. So once again, your ARV is your after repair value. That's what the ARV stands for. Our ARV on this property, we used $100,000 as our number. I got that number from looking at 12 months worth of comps within a mile radius on Zillow. Now, this is not a foolproof system, but it works in a majority of the cases. If you go onto Zillow, you're going to find the address of the property that you're looking at. You're going to mark, instead of for sale, you're going to mark sold, change the filters to match. If it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, change it to 2-bedroom, 1-bath. You're going to mark sold in the last, where it has 12 months, 6 months, 90 days, 30 days. You're going to mark in the last 12 months, and then you're going to set your radius to 1 mile away from that property. you want to find at least 3 properties that match your beds and baths, your square footage, and have sold in the last year close to your property, and average what those sold for per square foot. So let's say that you have property 1, and that sold for, let's say, 100,000, and it was 1,000 square feet. Okay, let's bust out the calculator so we can make this smooth. So let's say that this property sold for $100,000. It was 1,000 square feet. So this property sold at $100 a square foot. Let's say property 2 sold for $80,000, and that property was 900 square feet. Then you're going to divide that $80,000 by 900, and you're going to get a price of $88.88 a square foot. And without doing the math on the third one, let's just say that that property sold at $95 a square foot. You find those 3 properties on Zillow, and you're going to take your 95 a square foot plus your 88.88 a square foot plus your 100 a square foot, divide that by 3, and now you know that on average properties sell there for $94.62 a square foot, and then all you're going to do is multiply that by the square foot of the property that you're looking to buy. So if your property was, say, 750 square feet, that means that property, we're going to take 750 times the average square footage, and that's going to give us 70,970. That is our new ARV. Okay, so we did that math on the property before we showed up, and that gave us an ARV of $100,000. Okay, so from there, the formula that we use for fix and flips, and that's actually a very common formula for fix and flippers in general, is taking your ARV times 70%, so 0.7, and then subtracting your renovation cost. So in real numbers, that is 100,000 times 70%, so that's 70K, minus the 35K that we projected in renovation costs. So now we have 35K, and this is the top dollar that we would want to pay for that property. That is our offer price that we cannot go over, is 35K. So the fact that he was offering or asking 30K was great, and the fact that the other guy offered 28,000, but we know we can go up to 35,000 and still make money, that's what lets us offer him a little bit more than the previous guy, even though he's only asking 30. So to give you a quick breakdown of why we use 70%, that 70% is taking 30% off the top, right? So we're taking 30% off the 100,000 right away. That 30% is made up of, we estimate 6% that goes to our realtor. So that's 6% to the realtor, 3% to the buyer, 3% to the seller, 6% in realtor fees, 2% in closing costs, 2% in taxes, and then that's 10%, and then 20% is what we want to make in profit. So that means that we're taking $30,000 off the top, 10,000 of that is going to realtor fees, closing costs, and taxes, $20,000 of that is going to our profit. So that's why we take 30% off the top, and then we subtract out how much we're going to spend in renovations. Okay? So what that does is that sets up this scenario for us. We offer $35,000 to the seller once the property sells. Not today, not tomorrow, not in a week. Once the property sells, that seller will collect his $35,000. And then we're going to have $35,000 in, actually, let's set it up this way real quick. We're going to do this. This is seller and us. This side is the money out of our pocket. We have $35K in renovation. Okay, seller's getting $35K at closing, but it's not out of our pocket. It comes out of the proceeds when we sell. So we have $35K in renovations, $35K going to the seller. We're $70,000 all into this property. When that property sells, assuming it sells for the $100,000, we're going to make $20,000 in profit. Now, why novations are so powerful is because let's say that us as investors, we only have, let's call it $50,000 to our name. That is all the money that we have to work with. Well, if that's the case, we can't even afford this deal because it's going to take $70,000 to get this deal done. Now, could we go get an investor or whatever? Of course. But if we're just trying to rely on ourselves, we couldn't even get this flip done for 50 grand. But doing a novation, we only have to spend the $35,000 because the rest is just put to the end when the property sells. So now we are making $20,000 on a $35,000 investment that should only take about 90 days to make that type of return. I don't know about you guys, but $20,000 on a $35,000 investment, you're talking about almost a 50% return. That is a 43% return on your money in a 3-month period. So if you do that 4 times a year, you're talking about insane returns. And this stuff is possible every single day. These deals are on the market every day, and there is barely anybody that is structuring deals like this. So they're just sitting there waiting to get swooped up by somebody that knows what they're doing. So if, let's say, we did spend the whole $70,000 and we got a $20,000 return, that's still a pretty decent return, but we go from a 43% return to a, 28% return? Way, way smaller returns on our money, obviously. So what I have learned is that not only are these powerful when you actually flip the property and you go in and you list it on the market and sell it, but I've also found incredible ways to different exit strategies to utilize novations to where you don't even have to sell the house. You can actually take this same deal and turn it into a long-term rental for yourself to where you literally have no money out of your pocket whatsoever at all. So one thing that I did miss was this $35,000. If you don't want to put this out of your pocket, all you need to do is find your Danny, which is our investor that brought this to us, and tell him, hey, Danny, I'll give you 15% return on your money, or I'll split the profits with you. You put up all the money. I'll do all the work of like managing it, making sure that the contractors are there on time, all that type of stuff, and we'll split the profits. So for Danny, he's going to make half of this $20K. So Danny's going to make 10 grand on a $35,000 investment in the 3-month period. Still phenomenal returns for him, like 30-some% returns. And I'm going to make 10 grand on just my time. So if you don't even have the $35,000 to put in the renovation, find an investor, split the profits with them, offer them a 15% return, which is still like light years ahead of what they're getting in the market or any other type of investment they probably have, and use other people's money to get it done. But if you don't want to sell the property and you still want to figure out how can I keep this as a rental and no money out of pocket, you do everything the same way. Everything that we talked about is the exact same way, except for at the end of this, you go to a bank and you say, hey, bank, come appraise this property. And they say, okay, your appraised value, our ARV, once we had fixed that property up, they appraise that property for $100,000. Banks are usually between 70 and 80% going to allow you to do a cash out refinance of 70 to 80% of the appraised value of the property. So that means if your property appraised for $100,000, bank's going to give you 70% of that as a cash out refinance. So they are willing to write you a new mortgage for $70,000. That is cash that they will write you a check for $70,000. You take that $70,000, you pay off the seller, his $35K, you pay off Danny, his $35K. Let's call the investor. So there goes the entire $70,000. What about Danny's profit that Danny wanted to make, or his interest on his money? Well, let's say that you did it at 15%. You told Danny 3 months, 15%, we'll get this done. I'm going to pay you $5,250 to hold your money for 90 days. If you spend that $5,250, that is all that you're going to spend. And now you have a rental property that should be cash flowing you, say $400 or $500 a month, and you've only spent $5,200 to acquire that property. And it's a fully updated, fully renovated, not going to need anything in it for hopefully a handful of years. So it's just a cash flow machine at that point. Now you're like, well, still, what if I don't have the $5,000? You're still telling me I can do this with literally no money. You can still get this same thing done for no money by either asking the bank to give you 75%, so that'll give you $75,000, and obviously you're only $250. Or another route to go is to offer your investor that they can stay as part owner of the property for a minority stake in that property. So let's say a $100,000 house, rule of 1%, most properties rent for 1% of whatever they're appraised for. So that property probably rents for $1,000 per month. A mortgage, a small mortgage on $70,000, let's say you're spending like $450 on the mortgage. So you have $550 left over. And obviously you might have a management fee, or you might have water that you're covering for the tenant, whatever it is. Let's say that you offered the investor, hey, we're going to keep this property. I'm going to be an 80% ownership stake, and you're going to be 20%. Well, now that investor can get 20% of that $550 every month. So they're going to get $110 every single month. And you're going to give them the $35K back, but maybe that $5,250, the interest, you don't have to pay them. So you just give them this. Well, that means that every year they're going to be getting $1,320 back. So you run that obviously over the life of the mortgage, 30 years, they're going to make way more money by just holding on to the 20%, or you could do 50-50 or get creative with it, because how I look at deals before I had money to actually do them myself was beggars can't be choosers. If I have to hold on to the 20%, I'll hold on to the 20% because it's still better than nothing. I can still start growing my portfolio and growing my net worth with no money at all. And what's really powerful is the more that you do this, the more that investors see that you are responsible with their money, that you know what you're doing, that when you say it's a good deal, they know it's a good deal and that you will get it done. You start working way better and way more competitive rates with your investors. So I would never pay an investor 15% on their money for a 90-day deal. Now I know I could get money for 12% and be able to hold it for a year, and I can take that money and flip 4 of these deals at a time or something. But when you're starting off, take what you can take. Beggars can't be choosers. Make sure that you're coming out ahead, obviously, and you're working towards building your net worth in your portfolio. But at the end of the day, you're still going to be a step ahead of where you were to start this deal off. So that is innovation. And I will just drop one more little hint. Novations are just how you get properties. There are 5 or 6 more ways than what I just showed with selling the property or refinancing it and keeping it as a rental that you can use to have an exit strategy for a property like this. But I can tell you the number one thing is don't worry about getting all the plan together and figuring it all out before you ever go start trying to find deals. Go find deals. If you find a good deal and you get it under contract, you will be able to find an investor. You will be able to figure out an exit strategy. But the hardest part is just getting out there and doing the cold calls, doing the door knocking, talking to the realtors, and getting a deal under contract, and then figuring out what to do with it from there. So if you guys like this type of stuff and you want more in-depth, no bullcrap, no paywall type of breakdowns of how to do this stuff and seriously grow a net worth that can change your life with little to no money out of your pocket and use creative financing to change your world, follow this channel, and we'll be sure to keep stuff like this coming every single week. As always, we appreciate you guys coming by, and get out there and make your last name mean something.